Yes, Devin is juiced up, and we are ready to go for your episode 351 of the Five to Go podcast. As Devin Kupka attends his first Daytona 500, we'll talk about what he's looking forward to and what the buzz is at the track. We'll also get into just a few of our crack predictions, which we may not even remember these predictions, okay, when we get later into the season, but that's what we do in this festive time of year. It is racing season, boys and girls, here on the Five to Go podcast. Welcome to the show. We're on Apple, Spotify, GoPRN.com, not to mention YouTube here. First 500, I think we're doing on YouTube, right? We started that early last season. I'm your co-host, Doug Fireball Turnbull. My day job, the one that actually pays the bills, is the traffic team with Rachel Cox-Rosen at 11 Alive, and also your Atlanta Journal-Constitution gridlock guy, and happy to be with you today. Joined online by two people that are far better dressed than myself. I mentioned it before. He's at his first Daytona 500. He's a roving racing journo, University of North Georgia alum. Respond right here. Hire Devin Kupka. Dev, you're dressed to the nines. You're in the radio room. You're experiencing your first Daytona 500. Give it to us, man. What's up?
Yeah, things are going well down here. Weather's been awesome since Monday. That's when I got down here. Went to Disney Tuesday. Wednesday, and I've been at the track since yesterday. Beautiful weather down here. I mean, you really couldn't ask for it any other better. And of course, it's Daytona 500 week, the media corps. It's crazy to see how much media is down here. We're 4 days out from the race. It's crazy to see what's transpiring here down in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting into the buzz out there for sure. I haven't done Daytona 500 media-wise since 2022, and I've just honestly cut back on that. It's hard to go out of your way and do that, especially with time off at work and coordinating that and stuff here at the house. And my wife has gone a bunch, so I'm glad that you're down there representing us, and it is an experience like no other. Seeing that, being outside and seeing the car cross the finish line, if you're able to get into victory lane, seeing that. I don't know that I've gotten into victory lane there, actually, going to think of it, but certainly being part of the winners press conference. I was in the room when Jamie McMurray walked in, for instance, the second 500 I covered on the media side, and him just being in tears, winning that big race after not knowing if he would have a ride or not. That's just something very, very special there. Also joining us on the line, a guy that has been to Daytona 500 victory lane as a mechanic before, the master maker of speed, wrenching on those transmissions in his Dawsonville garage, giving us another angle of the old Elliott Family Racing Museum there, which doubles as his garage. Dan Elliott, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. Yeah, I feel like I've got more stuff here than the museum's got. If you look around, it's just overwhelming at times, but proud to have this because it reflects more of the family heritage than it does just the last decade or so even. But glad to be here. I'm like Devin, beautiful weather, but I'm more curious to see his thoughts. First time Daytona, I can remember mine and how excited I was, and I know you are. And let's hear what you've encountered so far.
Yeah, I would say the first thing, because the first day I was at the track. Well, actually, let's start on Monday.
You drove down Monday, right?
I pull into Daytona. The credentials office is like 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from the track.
Yeah, it's across Speedway Boulevard.
You're on the International Speedway Boulevard coming from I-95 South. You hook a left on International Speedway Boulevard. You have to go past One Daytona, which is right across the street from the track.
That's the NASCAR corporate headquarters, by the way, for those that don't know. One Daytona, yeah.
Make a left over there, just past it. The Volusia Mall's to your right. And then you go down a little bit, you make a left on the road, you pass an elementary school to your left, and then bam, there's the credential office hidden behind all these trees here. And I mean, this is like a complex like a small little complex just to pick up your credentials because normally it's like a ticket booth or it's in some warehouse like Bristol is, or it's Echo Park Speedway where it's in this little building. But it's like a whole thing. It's like shaped like a holler, so I picked up my credentials there. Tuesday went out to Disney World. That was fun. And then yesterday was my first day inside the track at Daytona International Speedway. First time in the infield. I've been to the last two Coke Zero Sugar 400s here. But walking in reminds me of Indianapolis Motor Speedway in a way. They've got massive differences between the two. walking in here, it has like a fan first presence in here with the fan zone. They got its own fan zone in the infield, which outside of Indianapolis, but Indianapolis pretty much has everything in the infield. Outside of that track, I really haven't seen anything in the infield that's like really like, oh, this is the place to be. They have places to sit. Like there's a thing over by, hey, Budweiser Bistro right outside the media center here, right, kind of just off the start finish line. You have the screen that there's one that's facing the fans in the grandstand, and then you have one that's lower that's facing the people in the infield here, and they've got like not benches, but they got like little park seats set up like all in front of the screen. So it's really cool down here to see what they have, the activations here. FS1's actually bringing one of their live shows down here today. Not in the
Kevin
fan zone
Harvick's
area,
happy hour,
but-
I believe.
Yes, Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour and First Things First, which is more of a general sports show. They're going to be at the Fox Sports set that's right over there. Also, yesterday was Daytona 500 Media Day, and that was neat to be actually participate in something that's a little bit bigger in terms of just a regular media center type day. When you're at the track, it's more of a fanfare. People are doing shows. There's a whole bunch of people there. Sirius XM, MRN, they're all doing shows. There's a red carpet, interview drivers. It's really neat. And it was in the Daytona 500 Club, which is a really neat place. And I wonder how much the tickets are to sit in the Daytona 500 Club, but ate lunch there. I got a T-shirt. They got the new tequila sponsor.
Jose
that they
Cuervo,
signed. Yep, I got a shot glass that's actually in my NASCAR bag over here, and then I got a T-shirt. So good lunch yesterday, and the media experience was really cool. It was just like 6 hours straight of interviewing drivers for the most part. I took a lunch break, but it was just bam, 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 bam. You just had all these drivers, and they were up there, and we got that all. A lot of it, actually, there's some more stuff like Josh Berry, Kyle Busch that I have yet to upload on our socials, but there's just so much stuff to do. Yes, not so much stuff, but just in terms of like you're just talking to drivers, interviewing them, and then things kind of lulled out, and then qualifying, walked around in the garage area here. I don't mean to keep rambling, but the garage area here is the most unique garage setup I've seen. Where I would always praise Indianapolis for having a great garage setup because they have the huge bays. It's like a double-sided garage that's one bay each, and that was always a unique one because then there were suites on top of it. But here, and honestly, yesterday, I didn't even the Truck Series, when I got here about 2 hours ago, was the first garage I've actually been in since I've gotten here because I couldn't figure out a way to how to actually enter the Cup Series garage here because like all the gates were closed. It was kind of weird because it all goes in this like U shape in a way. So how the Cup garages here are set up in the fan zone, and it's a brilliant idea, and more tracks should probably adopt this, where it's like in an upside down V like this. So you're coming from the fan zone down here, the infield fan zone, and then you can you're not entering the garage bays or anything like that. It's all walled off, but they've got windows around it where you can get up close and actually watch, like actually up close. You can't do that at other tracks because they'll say, "Hey, we need you to back out."
Well, so so Las Vegas has a similar setup. Their neon garage. I've been down there once or twice. That's pretty cool. That's one. And I want to say, because you haven't been on the media side at Talladega, but I know Talladega's redone a lot of the infield, and I think they did something similar. What is in Daytona is the model for the future for tracks that could fit it, and when they do decide to renovate. And fans, by the way, could walk up to those windows and drivers will come up and fans could slide hero cards and hats and stuff under the slits in the windows during certain times, like during practice and things.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool how they have it laid out. It's like in this V shape, and I think that's the garages of the future if you're able to fit it. I know there's some tracks that I've heard, like for instance, Echo Park Speedway was mulling the idea of potentially doing something like the neon garage. I don't think anything's come to fruition on that as it's still the same old, but I think this is a model that a lot of tracks need to look out for. I mean, Talladega redid their garage area back in 2019, and in fact, they're actually getting ready to do a massive renovation to the facility, not just the infield, but actually the grandstands, which is much needed there. But I think, as long as you got the money and you can spend it, I think that's probably a way you can utilize your infield area a lot better because some of these tracks, it just kind of just goes really underutilized at a lot of them. I don't want to name tracks, but there's a couple out there that I go to pretty frequently that are decent in size, in the infield that could probably use the space a little bit better.
Yeah,
Especially
for sure.
with how camping nowadays, there's not as many campers as there used to be that come to the racetrack.
Well, there'll be a lot of that's probably smart not to throw anybody under the bus, but certainly if you've got bigger than a short track, figure out how to do better for the fans. But if you only have NASCAR coming to your track once or twice a year, demand has to meet supply, so to speak. There. So, Dev, the first on-track action you saw was practice before media day, and I didn't. I was at work, and my first thought was, crap, I can't watch practice because it's on something I'm not logged into at work or whatever. But actually the Daytona practices are on FS1. So I could have logged into it, but that was single car qualifying runs. Austin Cindric led practice, but big deal. Again, who's trying what, who's doing what. A couple cars didn't even take a lap at all. I think Todd Gilliland and Michael McDowell, if I heard him say right on Fox. So we get to the nighttime. They had to wait till 8 the heck o'clock at night for qualifying. The most anticipated qualifying of the year, and as the guys on the Money Lap said, the most boring qualifying of the year. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh. But because there's so much, there's 8 cars that are trying to get into that race on time, so to speak, and however many 4 are going to go home. So Dev, you got to watch Daytona 500 qualifying, and you're basically keeping eyes on 2 things, right? Who's going to end up on the front row, and who are going to be the 2 of the several open teams that actually time into the show and don't have to sweat the races that happen tonight as we record this. So what was that like?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to watch that here at the track to see, because qualifying is so different here, where the traditional qualifying, which is on Wednesday night, only sets the front row, and seeing open cars trying to get in, and then they're going to have to race tonight in the duels, and it's just something different to see. And this is the longest qualifying session of the year too, because that was a good 2 hours last night.
It was almost, it was close to 2 hours. By the way, it also got bumped to FS2 to start because there was Iowa Maryland College basketball in FS1. That's already 2 events out of 2 this year that have gotten put on the FS2 deal because of other network commitments. Although if I was an Iowa basketball fan, I wouldn't want to see my game get taken off the air for another sports qualifying session, right? But we haven't said a word yet. We're 12 minutes in, and the only thing you could take away that counts for anything is that Kyle Busch and Chase Briscoe start on the front row. Kyle Busch wins the pole for the Daytona 500. Briscoe, last year's pole sitter, second. Ryan Preece was really fast there. Denny Hamlin, several others in that session. They did have the top 10 go out and make speeds a second time, which is commonplace at most tracks. Now it's hard to remember which tracks have the top 10 afterwards and not. So I'm going to have to reset for Echo Park Speedway next week. But they had that. But the thing that we really learned from that session even more was that 2 of all of those open teams are going to make the Daytona 500. We knew that Jimmy Johnson was going to make it before that qualifying started. He's taken the Open Champions Provisional. He could have qualified on the pole, and I think would still have to start 41st, the way that rule reads. All right? But Jimmy Johnson's in the race, car number 84. And then it's Justin Allgaier, second year in a row. Last year he had to race his way in. This year he timed his way in, the Traveler's Whiskey number 40 Chevrolet. And then Corey Heim, who was doggone fast, and the number 67 Robin Hood Toyota. Heim will be making his first start in the Great American Race. And he has a 12-race schedule they announced last week for a Cup this year. Nothing else announced for O'Reilly Auto Parts and Trucks, and he will be the reserve driver for Team 2311. So what was whose press conferences did you sit in on? Who did they bring in, and what were their moods like after that qualifying session? Because for Busch, he's never won the 500. He had a rough year last year. Briscoe's riding a ton of momentum. You have the 2 drivers I just mentioned that timed their way into the show. What was that scene like?
Briscoe's was quite interesting because I just don't feel like there's a lot of fanfare around that. It was like, well, we sat on the front row last year, and I think they even sat on the pole too.
He was on the pole, yep.
Not many questions were asked to Briscoe. Busch a little bit more, but NASCAR's
people would also ask drivers questions all day. Let's keep that in mind.
That's the thing, too.
We've already had 15 minutes with Kyle Busch. We're good, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah. We have media day, and their media day is longer. The interview sessions are longer than what normally would be on a regular race weekend. Instead, like a driver might be there 8 minutes, but yesterday drivers, as long as media members were coming up, were there on average for about probably 20 to 30 minutes yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's kind of tough, but I mean, I feel like it's a bigger deal because Briscoe's got a lot of years ahead of him. He's still, I don't think, hit the prime of his career yet. Got a lot of stuff ahead of him, and he went out, performed really well last year. Was in the championship chase at the end of the season. Busch, I feel like a lot more is riding on this because Kyle Busch hasn't gotten a race win in 3 years, right? Where he won at Auto
since
Club,
2023,
Talladega, and Gateway, that being his final win that he's gotten, where you can really say now Busch compared to Briscoe hasn't even, it might be just hitting his prime, but Kyle Busch is out of his prime now and probably looking to get maybe, 1, 2, maybe 3 more wins in his career. And remember, Busch's contract runs out at the end of the season, so he's going to want to try and put out the best performance that he can in pending free agent unless he gets re-signed with RCR. But he's going to want to put out the best performance he can this year because he's probably going to want to still race, I would imagine, in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I think there's a lot more riding on the line for Busch and also RCR too, because Austin Dillon's been the only driver at RCR in the Cup Series, at least, that's been getting wins over the past couple of years than the veteran driver that they thought they were getting back in 2022 in Kyle Busch, who has only had 3 wins since he signed with the team, and even since then with Austin Dillon has the same amount of wins as well.
Yeah, well, and look, it's easy to throw dirt on him, but he's still Kyle Busch. You never know when the fire goes out. But this is of all the drivers that have years on the line, this has got to be one of the biggest ones. You could argue somebody else, maybe like Suarez, who you don't know what their next move is. Kyle Busch being Kyle Busch, somebody will ride that horse. When you're somebody like Daniel Suarez or someone that's on the other series trying to move up, when there seem to be very few places where there are drivers deserving of losing their ride. Even though there are a lot of free agents, maybe as many as half could be free agents this year. What teams are really like, man, this guy stinks, I want this other guy? There's not very many soft spots on that Cup grid, even with all that free agency. So there are a lot of people who have seasons on the line. And what place could Kyle Busch go that's actually better than where he's at right now? That's really going to be available. Like, okay, and I know we're there, and we're going to get back to Daytona. If the 48 car, let me bring Dan in here, okay? So we've covered all this media day stuff. Kyle Busch wins the poll. Dan, if the 48 car opens up, if Alex Bowman, they're like, yeah, does Hendrick bring back Kyle Busch to do a joyride for a season or two in the 48? Do you see that, Dan, at all happening? Devin shaking his head.
I don't see it happening. I really don't. I honestly think, sitting here thinking about what would I do if I were Kyle Busch, I think based on what I've already seen is that, like other people, I think Kyle Busch is, yes, he wants to run good everywhere he goes. I don't think the fire's out yet. I really don't, and I see that were it me, I would want to go as hard as I could go till I got Brexton at a Cup ride, and that would be my goal. Would be to be in it long enough to secure and not just a ride, but secure one of the best rides that I could possibly get him into, and try to make sure that I did not waste any years, any time whatsoever in any kind of process of coming up through a learning curve. I think he's already at the point to where his learning curve is way ahead of a lot of other people's that I've seen come into the sport. And as young as he is, I think it's like Kevin Harvick's son. I think that just find a spot, get him in, and be there, and try to coach him as much as they can. And that to me would be my purpose right now.
Well, Brexton is 15. He turns 11 years old.
Yeah.
Later this year. All right.
Yep.
Because he got born. He was born. He got born. He was born right after Kyle Busch broke his leg at Daytona in 2015. I was there for that race, by the way. That was a crazy day to have Kurt Busch get suspended for alleged domestic violence on Friday, and Kyle Busch to miss a third of the NASCAR season, getting injured Saturday. That was a wild weekend, 2015 at Daytona,
That
by
was
the
a
way.
wild
Just throwing
season
that out
for
there.
Kyle Busch.
It was. Yeah, because then he wins the championship, of course, under that format, which we no longer
Yep.
have, by the way. So yeah, that's a great point. Dan is trying to race that long, but that's still 7 years, right? Or if you want to go
Don't
to
matter.
trucks,
Don't matter.
5 years. You know,
I think that's the goal is to try to, because like I said, it isn't like you want to do good. You're not giving up on anything. But I see that Kyle has those years, and that's exactly what I would want to do.
that's I could see that. Let's see what happens. And there are outlets too with trucks or whatever you could stay active. But yeah, that's a long time to do it. And it would be being old. It would be lasting until older than Denny Hamlin is now, or older than Truex was when he retired. It would be getting into Mark Martin territory doing that, and you got to stay
As long
healthy
as
too.
you're
So
enjoying what you do, Doug, that doesn't mean anything. As long as you're enjoying what you do, as you talk about the people living your best life, and that's what I think that
yeah,
that's what other life do you really know?
well, that's true. That's true. And seeing his brother Kurt get out of the car before he was ready,
Yep.
and how much that affected him. And I think Kurt it still hurts from that,
Yep.
from the concussion stuff in 2022. All right, so let's move on from Kyle Busch here. Let's stay in Daytona. There was something interesting that popped up during the Fox telecast that I don't maybe I was just tired. I didn't take a nap yesterday. I wake up 4 a.m. each day, so I'm sitting there 9:30 at night and I'm seeing the graphics on the screen, and it was made a big deal on social media, but enough so that Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer explained it, which is the throttles on the Fords being at 90% when everybody else is matted to the floor. Devin, did you see questions fielded about that? I mean, I'm seeing what social media, including media people, are saying, but basically, Kevin Harvick said from his later Ford days at the end of his career that they felt the engines performed better when being at 90% throttle in a super speedway, big time tapered spacer scenario, choke down horsepower scenario. They perform better at 90% versus 100%. So, Devin, you're saying you didn't see questions fielded on. Let me go to transmission guy whose brother also is a legendary engine builder, Dan. Does this make any sense at all? And I know we're
No,
talking about the okay.
no, makes
What's
no sense
interesting
to
is
me.
Chase Briscoe said that they're not actually at 90%. That was the graphic was wrong. Basically, they're actually full throttle, but all the Fords, and it was only the Fords had it. So that makes me think the graphic was not so wrong. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we did see
AI is
Noah
alive and well.
Gregson's. Yeah.
AI is alive and well, yeah, because these are approximations. I want to get to that. Let me get to Devin's in a second. AI is alive and well. All the things we see from the ghost car in qualifying, or that the car that they're trying to race for 10th to make the bubble, or the pole speed, all of that is, I mean, it's amazing technology, but it is an approximation. All of that, what's now not called SMT data anymore, are all satellite approximations. They don't have sensors tied to all these things that are feeding information back. There are approximations based on what the car is doing on the racetrack, right? So take that for what it's worth. Devin, there was the most interesting thing besides the pole winner and Dale Jr.'s car making the race. It was what happened early in qualifying.
Yeah.
That
So Noah Gregson. So NASCAR. Before I get to Noah Gregson, NASCAR changed the rules for qualifying on the super speedways, or was it overall qualifying at every track?
I think they were only doing it at super speedways, but I think
Okay.
it qualifies to every track. Yeah.
So one thing we've seen over the past couple of years is drivers are putting their hands outside the window net. They're putting it outside the window net like this, essentially, to, I guess, for downforce purposes and aero purposes. They'll put it out. They'll put it out like this. I have it demonstrated on the screen, but for the listeners, it's like as if I'm pointing my fingers. I have it like as if I'm getting ready to swear an oath here, but I have my hand tilted to the left tilted, but it's in that direction, kind of
right in the
out
A-frame of the car.
window.
Yeah, well, there's a window duct right there, so the air doesn't enter the cockpit of the car. Although there's a net right there, some air is going to get in. But that area where it's almost pointed forward, they deflect the air with their glove.
Yep.
And honestly, I didn't see why there was a need to make a rule about that. Who cares? I mean, it's super speedway qualifying. If you want to put one hand on the wheel, do it. At your own risk, I guess. But Joey Logano, remember, got in trouble for having the webbed gloves. Was it Atlanta he got in trouble, or did he just or was it at Daytona?
I want to say it was Echo Park a few years ago.
It was at Echo Park Speedway. He got in trouble for having webbed gloves, so they were even sciencing out having expensive gloves where you could keep your fingers spread and deflect even more air. Go figure, engineers. So Dev, so Gregson did this. NASCAR caught him red-handed, pun intended.
Yep.
And even though he had a slow time, I don't think he was going to be anywhere close to the top 10. They disallowed his time. And he'll have to start in the back for his dual race. But, I mean, hey, he could finish second in his dual race and get a top 10 starting spot. So, hey, big deal, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, got to love it, Dan, the innovations of these teams, right?
If that were me, probably knowing that they just qualified me the first lap of the Daytona 500, I'd do it again, but I only have one finger up.
You'd pull the old Kyle Busch in his pit stall, flipping off the officials, yes.
Yeah,
so
this would be at full throttle.
Full throttle. There you go. All right, so that's at qualifying. Practice, there's nothing there. You haven't heard, Devin, since then about any engine changes, inspection issues. I mean, again, we still have the duels to run and then pre-race inspection to go, so we got a lot to happen here.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything yet.
Dan, before we back off of this and get out of Daytona, we're going to do our predictions and then get on out of here, okay? Because by the time y'all listen to this, the duels will have happened. You might have seen Truck and O'Reilly races already. But Dan, Speed Weeks used to actually be plural, even though it's still called Speed Weeks. It actually used to be multiple, 4 or 5 practices over a couple of weeks. There was preseason thunder testing. There was all this stuff. How many engines at the heyday, in the heyday of your time, how many engines do you think your team would go through, considering they used to have separate qualifying engines at one point, right?
Well, I've been down there before when we changed during the course of that week. And this is counting because you would change engines you'd have a qualifying engine. You'd have an engine for the twins that we ran. You'd have an engine for that, and then you'd have another engine for the 500. Plus, you would have all of the engines that you would take before qualifying. I know that we went through 8 engines one time before we chose the engine that we ran in the car, and it just blows your mind at what used to be. And Doug, believe it or not, transmissions and rear ends as well, because think about it, for qualifying, you've got to get up to speed, and you only had a 4-speed transmission at that time, and you were limited to gear ratios by what the manufacturers of those transmissions made. So you were trying to figure out the best ratio that would get you up to speed the quickest and not lose time, especially down the back straightaway before you took the green flag. You wanted to get as much speed as you could. So all of that was important. And it was all the driveline. It was the engine. It was the trans. It was a differential, because you also selected, and the differential was selected not only by the RPM, but also too, as I was going to ask Devin how the wind is, because wind was always a factor at Daytona, as Talladega, and you could lose depending on what direction the wind was out of, either down the front straightaway or the back straightaway. You could conceivably lose several miles an hour qualifying just because of the wind direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I the wind, I didn't really feel any wind last night. Today, actually, when I was bringing my suit in here, my jacket into the media center, there was a wind gusting at me, and I was going towards turns 3 and 4, but it's like the wind is here and there today, for instance. But that's what I've noticed so far when it comes to that aspect of the weather.
Yeah, usually whenever the
Yeah,
wind
but
is the worst is when you have a front coming through and the wind is out of a direction and it stays that way and it is a wind that is probably 25 to 35 miles an hour, and you can notice the cars even as they go through the corners how that affects them, and especially in the draft.
well, and I think especially as aerodynamically suited those cars were and specialized those cars were, now I feel like they're a little more boxy than they were, say, in the late 90s, early 2000s. They're a little more boxy, and they're so glued to the ground. I wonder, if the wind upsets them as much as it did at that time. I don't know but I know the wind matters, just like catching a cloud during daytime qualifying matters. They were going as far last night to talk about if you had the best time to have gone in qualifying was probably, you had 40 something cars and then you had the last 10. If you'd made the last 10, it was probably best to have gone in the middle of that first stage so you had enough time to cool your water, but the rear gear, the transaxle were still hot. That was what Larry Mack was saying was like the fine line, cool, and he was worried about, say, Denny Hamlin, who was second to last, but he qualified in the top 10, went forward, and he still had hot water. Would they have enough time to change that, even though his gears would still be hot? Just interesting little things. And again, when you're qualifying right on top of each other, everybody's basically, for intents and purposes, wide open. Every little bit counts. We also notice as the cars porpoising a lot, bottoming out a lot. Oh my God, Daniel Suarez had an awful, awful ride in his qualifying session, just bouncing all over the place in his new number 7 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet. So here's what we're looking at here as far as the Cup Series. I'm going to go series by series when they're on track. We've already seen Daytona 500 qualifying and the Wednesday practice at 10 a.m. The next time they're on track is Friday the 13th, Boogie Woogie, Friday the 13th, 5:35 on FS1. The Cup Cars Happy Hour is Saturday, Valentine's Day at 3 p.m. on FS1. The dual races, of course, are tonight. Honestly, y'all are going to hear this Friday. See, the dual races were last night, okay? There you go. That's the dual races, a Thursday situation there. And, of course, the Great American Race, 2:30 Sunday. Before I get to O'Reilly schedule, truck schedule, ARCA, Dev, you were looking at Sunday. It's been good weather down there. Talk to me.
Yeah, of course, you know how Daytona weather looks. It can always be hit or miss, especially, and really more than just Daytona. It's Florida weather overall. But the current weather forecast, and I'm pulling that up right now, was beautiful weather Wednesday through Saturday, right? Not any issues of precipitation or anything, but we look at the forecast for Sunday. Not only is where we all emanate from normally, North Georgia, they're going to be getting some weather on Sunday too.
Yeah, we're going to get
It's also going to come all the way south down here to Daytona. Currently, the Weather Channel has us set at a 51% chance of rain. And I will say this, look, watching a couple of news reports down here in that Orlando market, the thing they're looking at is the atmosphere and whether how dry or how humid it's going to be. Come Monday, the atmosphere right now is expected to be very humid. Right now, it's pretty dry right now. You don't really feel the humidity despite it being almost in the 70s, right? So they said that's going to determine how much rain we get as well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the weather, but it's unfortunate because the last 2 years have been affected by weather on Sunday, and this one could be too. And you got to remember, 2020 and 2021 were. So if you think about it now, right? Only 2023 and 2022 were the non-affected Daytona 500s this decade, and we're about getting ready to run our 7th of the decade.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, 2020 had the downpour right after, as Dan reconnects with us, right after.
Didn't like the chances of rain.
He did. He hung up, and I don't blame him. 2020 had that downpour right on the parade laps, basically, as soon as they're about to start the race after Trump had brought the beast on the racetrack, the big presidential limo. 2021, it had a huge rain delay right at the very beginning. There's the big one that happened, that race that Michael McDowell won. There was the big one that happened very early in that race, and then you had to wait for hours until the finish of it. You mentioned 22 and 23 are okay. I was at both of those. 2020, 2024 ran on Monday. Last year's was delayed a couple of hours. So, gosh, that's crazy, man. Thank you for laying that out. Not because it makes me happy, but it's just worth knowing. Can we catch a break, NASCAR? Can we catch a break? Respond right here. Sunday, so I like to look up. I'm glad you looked up Weather Channel. I like to look up a local TV outlet. My former company, CMG, their station, WFTV, predicts scattered thunderstorms Sunday, 70% chance of rain. All right. Now, that's 70% of the coverage area. A lot of people go say that's probability. It's 70% of the coverage area may get rain, but it's still, that's not very good. And if it's scattered, and if it's not just one front coming through, then you can't really plan for it. You can't say, hey, the floods are coming. Hey, Fox, we need to move the race up an hour. Hey, Fox, we need to do this. It's more like, it's just a bad atmosphere, as you said. So, yeah, that's tough. So we'll be looking ahead to that. The rest of the weekend there, so you mentioned the weather, Dev. Thank you for getting into it. For the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, they got one practice session, Friday, 4:30. Qualifying Saturday at 10 a.m. And, of course, the race is Saturday evening, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the CW. Their practice and qualifying are on the CW app, and everybody can watch it. But the race is not on the CW app, which is mind-boggling to me. Now, for the Truck Series, Craftsman Trucks, they're qualifying 3 p.m. Friday. I mean, Friday and Saturday, just bang days at this racetrack. Their practice is this afternoon as we record this here. We'll finish up right before the practice session, 5 p.m. Eastern. All right, their race 7:30 Friday night, 7:30 Eastern Friday night for the Truck Series. Their weather looks great, almost 0% chance of rain until we get to Sunday. Could be a 70% chance for that as well. Saw a late entry for the truck race there, Norm Benning, no sponsor. Saw Taylor Gray is listed in the Tricon Garage number 1. And I saw that in the Tricon number 5, the truck that Tony Breidinger ran a year ago, listed as Nick Lights, who has only run, for DGM and SS Greenlight and Rayum Brothers and these small teams. He's getting a shot with a heavy hitter there. I'd love to see that at Daytona. Also seen Corey LaJoie is going to run for Henderson Motorsports. Cletus McFarland was cleared. He dinged up his truck doing a test run for NASCAR, but Cletus McFarland was cleared to run the race, and he was forced. His real name's Garrett Mitchell, the YouTube star's real name, Garrett Mitchell, but he was forced to put Cletus McFarland Mitchell on his hard card. He just put that out on social media, by the way. Some other drivers that are going to moonlight into this race, Michael McDowell. I don't feel like he's gotten enough press for being in the truck race. He's going to be a standout there, Michael McDowell. And then for colleague racing, remember it's Minnie Tyrell that won that Ram Race for the Seat show, and I have not actually watched episode number 8, but Minnie Tyrell won. What you pointing at there, Dev?
They're doing the press conference right now for him.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay, Minnie Tyrell. Timothy is real name, but he's a little guy. Minnie Tyrell is going to be there. He'll be in truck number 14. Crew Chief Bruce Cook for colleague racing there. There are a ton of other different names in this series. Greg Alst is going to be running a part-time schedule. A couple of trucks are listed as unlisted. I think you're unlisted if you technically haven't passed the NASCAR clearance or drug test yet. And that doesn't mean you failed it. It just means you maybe haven't done it yet. So you see some like Daniel Hemrick will be in the 19 and Josh Rayum in the 22. Those aren't actually on the official entry list. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., the 45 truck for Nice Motorsports. Travis Pastrana for Nice Motorsports. Cletus McFarland for Nice Motorsports. John Hunter Nemechek, the 62, the second Haller Friesen racing team where Stuart Friesen's returning from a big injury in the 52 truck. I mentioned Corey LaJoie. Carson Hocevar will be the only Spire. Oh, no, there's 2 Spire trucks this year, and Carson Hocevar will be in the 77. So Spire's not going to have a full-time driver in this series. You also have Christian Eckes moving back to the truck series, Daniel Dye, Justin Haley. I mean, this is big. And drivers that have changed numbers. Ty Majeski is in the 88. And the Menards truck that Matt Crafton retired from. Jake Garcia moves to the 98 for Majeski. Cole Butcher is in the 13. I think that's not full-time. I'm not positive, though. Ben Rhodes stays in the 99. I know I'm rambling about all these. There's just so many different looks here in this truck series. So, and I forget, they announced who's driving the 81, and I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm not going to get into that. Unless you remember, Dev, or you have an updated entry list because his is listed blank. But
I don't.
um,
I should have brought the entry list in here, but I do not have them in front of me.
all good. Well, there's who knows what could change. Tony Breidinger's only part time in the series. She'll be in the 27 truck. Tony Stewart, I skipped over him because I'm so used to saying it already. He'll be in the 25 for this one race too. All right, but that's trucks. And for the O'Reilly series, and again, there also one more thing. There's only 36 spots. 8 trucks are going to go home. And remember, all of the calling trucks are guaranteed in this race. So some of these smaller teams, Clay Greenfield, number 95, Jason Kitzmiller in the second CR7 truck, Tony Breidinger, all these different smaller teams are going to really have a lot of pressure to lay that one perfect lap in qualifying there. Henderson Motorsports, Corey LaJoie, they could go home. John Hunter could go home. So we'll be watching that. The O'Reilly series has the same kind of deals, Devin, just with so many people going for this one race, a go for broke. Looking at their entry list here, and again, Garrett Smithley is going to be in the 0 instead of the 14. They changed numbers there. He drove the 0 for a long time for JD Motorsports. Ryan Ellis moves to Young's Motorsports in the 0-2. Cesar Baccarella is in the 4 for Alpha Prime Racing, the Parker Retzloff drove last year. And Luke Finhouse will be with the new Hettinger Racing team. That's a brand new team, number 5. Josh Balicki's with SS Greenlight for a partial schedule, but running most of the season in the 0-7. Corey Day is running the full year in the 17. Brent Cruz will not run the full season because he's not yet 18, but he will run the number 19 Joe Gibbs Toyota. Gio Ruggiero will run it for the opening 2 races there. Harrison Burton moves to Sam Hunt in the 24. AM Racing is going to have Nick Sanchez running for them in the number 25. They were going to be a totally different team name and everything, and then that all fell through. So they're running 2 cars, and I think Nick Sanchez will be in the 25. Let's see here. There's the number 70 team from last year is now called Barrett Cope Racing and is number 30. Carson Ware is going to run that at Daytona. Gosh, I just keep going down. We're only in the 30s and 40s here, number-wise. Patrick Staropoli, remember, replaces Nick Sanchez in the 48. Daniel Dye is going to run a partial schedule for AM Racing in a Ford, even though he's a Dodge driver, and the number 52. Okay, that's one I want to look out for. Austin Green with a Richard Childress partnership is running for Peterson Racing Group, with whom he ran at Trans Am, and he'll be the 87 car this year. And remember, there's some number switcheroos going on with Carson Quapple, who will sometimes have to give his seat over for Connor Zilich in the number 1. Sometimes Raja Karut's going to have to swap out in the number 88, but he'll be in the number 88 at Daytona. They're both expected, though, to run full seasons, sharing with other teams. And then a couple of other team changes. Mason Maggio will be with DGM Racing in the 91. Josh Williams remains in the 92 at DGM, joining him midway through last year. Viking Motorsports has expanded. They've added Parker Retzloff in the 99. DiBenedetto lost his ride late last year, has not resurfaced anywhere. And they've added a second car, Anthony Alfredo, in the 96. 42 cars going, I believe, for 40 positions. Is that right? I think that's true. So only a couple are going to go home from this series. Do I have that right, Dev? No, 4 cars. It's 38 positions. Sorry. 4 cars will miss the race there. I know that's a lot of numbers and a lot of people, but there's so many people, Dev, that start out this year and end up behind the 8 ball immediately because so many are going for things. Natalie Decker is going to be attempted that race for Joey Gase's team, and so will David Starr in the 35 and 53 respectively. So Joey Gase is going to run 3rd car. Why not? The 55, there's a chance he'll make the race. Big payoff, Dev. Is there anybody from these up-and-comers or small teams that you're looking at, how they're going to do? Rookie drivers that are moving up a series like LeVar Scott and Raja Caruth?
I'm curious to see how Haley Deegan will do again in NASCAR. Now that she's taken about 2 years off now, interesting to see what she'll bring.
Well, it's really just a year and a half. She was only last season she was out. She lost her ride with AM Racing halfway through 24, and now she's going to run a full ARCA West series. So again, that's like sub-tier, 4th or 5th highest series, right? ARCA West, but she'll have a part-time truck schedule. Yeah, be interested to see that. And look, let's get into it now. 2026. I want to go. I think in the truck series, I'm trying to see who's running a full year that was just look out for that guy. I think the Kaulig trucks are going to make some noise, and I fully expect Justin Haley to get back on the winner's circle. Daniel Dye. I think those guys, and I think Christian Eckes is going to have a chip on his shoulder the size of Montana after losing his ride and having to go back to McInerney Hoogeman racing in the 91 truck. Those are just a few that I think are on kill.
Ram Trucks got a pretty sick setup out in the garage area. It's more like an NHRA hauler that they have out there. It has the tent that comes out to the side, so it's like they're taking up 2 spots. So you can tell their presence is in the garage area.
Yeah, no doubt. They're going all in. I love the activation. Some of it, it's a little cheesy to me, right? To say some of that stuff on the Ram show, but they're spending the money. They're believing in NASCAR and Ram trucks and such. That's struggled, right? I mean, it's not been the biggest money getter for them. So they're really trying to go all in on NASCAR, like we've talked about with Arby's, for instance. It's had some struggles. And who's the other one? There's another fast food restaurant. Hardee's, Arby's and Hardee's, right? That are just like, hey, man. And so here, a sport that's licking its wounds, a few brands that are, and Ram is spending the most money out of all of them. All right, so Deb, let's look at the trucks, man. So do you in the truck series, we're going to go from bottom to top here. Yeah, you want to pick a champion?
Oh, I'd have to think about that one here for a second. How about you go ahead and pick
Hey,
one?
there it is. Deflection. Deflection. I like it. Okay, no, I'm not giving you a hard time. Okay, truck series. I think that with Corey Heim out of the picture, I think it's going to be a gunsling between Caden Honeycutt, who replaces Heim in the 11 truck, Caden Honeycutt, and Ty Majeski. Mark it down. Just guys that have won before. Well, actually, Caden Honeycutt has not won before, right? I don't think he did. Yeah, he didn't win before. Caden Honeycutt, who came close but just is eager and hungry, and Ty Majeski, who's a past champion and struggled last year and did not win a race after almost winning the championship at Phoenix. So that's my two. And while you're thinking about your truck champion, I'm going to pick a surprise, or not a surprise, excuse me, a first-time winner in that series. All right, again, this takes some thought because it's like who's actually running the year and has a chance. So Caden Honeycutt, he hadn't won yet, and he's going to drive the truck that won, 11 times, 12 times last year? Crazy. I'm not expecting him to do Corey Heim things, but if Caden Honeycutt doesn't win, I think that's Caden Honeycutt's problem, not Tricon Garage, because that is the team, the man. And then a surprise team to make the playoffs. The trucks only have 10 trucks make it, so it's pretty exclusive. And I want to look and just make sure I have a good size of who the full-time drivers are, because there's a lot of teams that are doing the, I don't know, that are doing the swapperoos, so to speak, that are having multiple drivers. I left Lane Riggs off of the running for the championship part. He's going to be riding the mix too. I think it'll be a big deal if Andres Perez makes the playoffs. Nice Motorsports is a good team, but it looks like they're going to have a lot of part-time teams, and he's going to be their bell cow over there. I mean that affectionately, okay? With all these different drivers cycling in and out, I think the Ram Trucks drivers that are full-time are going to be good to make it. I think Thor Sport teams are going to be good to make it, the ones that have full-time drivers. I think Perez is going to be the fulcrum. Andres Perez, number 44. He struggled big time last year, the Mexican driver, and switch teams mid-year. All right, so there you go. Dev, champion, first-time winner, and surprise playoff.
First-time winner.
I gave you, so you can pick the same ones as me. It's okay.
Caden Honeycutt, we'll see what he's got. Coming off a very successful year, not him driving that truck, but it was Corey Heim. See how much of that lingers going into this year. I wouldn't say surprise winner for this driver, early drivers, but Ram Trucks, see what they got. How about Justin Haley this year? I wonder how many races is he going to do. He's got a lot of Cup experience, raced a lot for Colleague Racing.
And
Let's
won.
see what he does with Ram Trucks this year in the Truck Series.
Yeah. So you think he's the surprise playoff driver?
Yeah.
Caden Honeycutt is the first-time winner. I think Caden Honeycutt's the low-hanging fruit. And then champion.
Gosh, I mean, Ty Majeski's a good pick for the championship. Won it a few years ago. Maybe Ben Rhodes. We'll see what he could have maybe. It's hard to pick one because
Yeah.
it just varies so much in the Truck Series. You have some
Hey,
of the regulars.
something else to season the roast, if you will. That's a good thing for a guy that doesn't eat a ton of meat. Season the roast. Uh, is how will Mini Tyrell do? He's raced the Cars Tour, but he's driving good equipment. It's calling, man, and he's running full time. It's guaranteed unless he gets hurt or something crazy happens. I say Perez will be the fulcrum as far as surprise playoff driver, but I wouldn't be. I would be surprised if Mini Tyrell safely made the playoffs. How about that? I think he'll be in a dogfight mid pack there with a team that's just getting it together and with a driver that has 0 Truck Series starts. I mean, he's running the ARCA race just to get sort of backhanded approved for Daytona, even though the truck race is the night before. You know, he's it's that there's a lot of learning curve there. And even though he's a great driver, that's going to be tough to overcome. All right, to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series now. And again, this is a tough one because you have drivers like I mentioned, Quapple and Carruth. Quapple, sophomore driver, Carruth, first-year driver in that series, that are going to have to hop seats a few times to stay full-time. But then you also have Brent Cruz, first full season. Will William Sawalich recover from the sophomore hangover? I mean, or the freshman hangover he had? He had a terrible year for a Gibbs car. Will Taylor Gray break through and win? Right? I mean, Taylor Gray, struggled right in some points, but also showed a lot of speed too. And again, you got a lot of teams that are just swapping out and sharing drivers, and you don't know who's really running for what. It's kind of tough after Connor Zilic just beat him in the head with a 2x4. So, do you want me to go first, Devin? And I'm sorry Dan hasn't reconnected here. I'm just getting the dots on my screen. I haven't got any text from him or anything.
I can go first, I guess.
Okay, go for it, man.
I guess first time winner. Has Rajah Carruth won in the all right? All right, I'm going.
No,
Carruth.
he's won 2 truck races.
I'm gonna go Carruth, first time winner, champion. I wonder how much longer Allgaier has left. So I think I'm going to go with him. Always a stable group. Junior Motorsports and the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. So I'll go with him as champion.
Allgaier for champ. Okay. Gotcha. And first-time winner, surprise playoff driver. And O'Reilly Auto Parts, there are 12. And keep in mind, as you're chewing on that, there are all these heavy teams there. There's Dan signing in just in time for predictions, his favorite part. Okay. Keep in mind, there are so many teams in the middle class of that series that'll be right on the edge that have affiliations, that have new affiliations. Jeremy Clements' cars are going to be built in the Haas factory team shop, or at least set up, or there's a really tight-knit collaboration. RSS, really tight-knit with Haas factory team, and they'll all be Chevrolets now, by the way, not Fords, which means the Ford money rolls down the hill to AM Racing, and maybe they get a leg up because they'll be the top Ford team. So, yeah, that's something to consider. Surprise playoff team. There are 12 of them in O'Reilly Auto Parts. Remember, 26 race body of work, no win and you're in. Any surprise playoff team, Devin? Yeah.
Surprise playoff team. Oh, boy.
Or driver, yeah.
Or driver. Excuse me. I would like to see somebody maybe from the, Kyle Sieg or maybe Ryan Sieg to make the playoffs. I know that's a stretch, but
I think it's a stretch for Kyle because he's not running the same program.
Okay.
He's just not. I don't know. Yeah. Of course, they're listed as Fords on the entry list. I thought they had a Haas factory affiliation. So scratch what I said about them being Chevys. I swear to you, they have the okay, whatever. I don't know. That's frustrating that they're listed as Fords because they're supposed to have the Haas factory affiliation. But okay, Ryan Sieg, and he's made it before on points. He's never won the series. So first time winner Rajah. Surprise playoff driver Ryan Sieg, champion Justin Allgaier. All right. Now, Dan, I know you don't just You do not stare as closely at the smaller series as you do the Cup Series. Are you willing, since you missed out on trucks? Although I'm looking at your face, I wouldn't say you missed it. You didn't seem like you missed it.
Well, I think for me, it's not I don't list it as a small series because I honestly love the truck racing at Daytona more than anything.
Yeah,
I see a lot more things happening in the truck deal. The Cup deal, it depends on how the day goes, whether they run in a draft and they run uh, side by side and they run so many laps, safe fuel, whatever. The truck seems to be a more exciting race to me. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not disappointed in the Cup race. It's just what I see. And Ty Majeski looks good, I think, for the truck deal. O'Reilly's, I'm not sure because this used to be easy for me, mainly because I don't keep up with it as much because trying to find where it's at in the streaming, since it's not on TV as much or as broadcast as much, it's more difficult for me to find. I think for
well,
me as
it's
well,
on CW. You know, it's on every single race. But if you don't have it at your house or it doesn't come
right?
in right or on your cable provider, that's tough.
Yeah.
But it technically is available on Bunny Ears on CW. Technically,
Technically. So and it does lend to be for me because I stay more active on the times that this stuff is running that I don't get to see it and I have to go back and look at it either YouTube or
yeah,
catch highlights, whatever. But for me, it disappoints me in the fact that I love this time of the season because by now you would have had enough testing across the board. While Devin was down there, you would have had enough visual to know who was strong, who wasn't, who was struggling, who wasn't, and then you've got from January, all the month of January, and then the first weeks of February, and then by now you would have had practice all week long, and you could have figured out by that who you thought was going to be strong, who struggled, who didn't, and who you thought was going to be the car or truck to beat no matter across the board what you got. And that's what you can't get anymore. And there's the part that I miss because
yeah.
you really don't know until after Daytona. Daytona really does set the tone because you don't get anything else. And then Daytona's one race, and it is a drafting. It is one of those tracks that you have to be really well versed at being able to run in a pack, being composed, and being able to have that sense about you to know where to be at what time and when to make your moves and when not. And this is more difficult now. And that was just what I
Agree.
was going to elaborate on.
Agree for sure. So, and what we were picking there is Daytona as O'Reilly Auto Parts champion, first time winner this year. A lot of young drivers in this series, and then a surprise team to make the playoffs. All right, so for O'Reilly's, Devin picked go with what you know, Justin Allgaier. He picked first time winner Raja Caruth, and he picked as a surprise playoff team being Ryan Sieg. All right, so I'm going to go on that because I agree. Small body of work. You have no body of work as we talk and record
Yeah.
the show right now,
Yep.
except for the Rockingham test, which we don't have the public results for because they
No.
used to do them. Now they don't. So let's go with it. For me, champion. I'll start at the top. I was thinking Allgaier as well. I mean, it could be one of the others, but I just don't see. But with Junior Motorsports splitting up the seats with guys now, and Zilich moving on to Cup. I mean, sure you could go Sammy Smith. What do you think of the Gibbs guys? I don't know if they have enough experience, and I don't think Brandon Jones is championship material. Jesse Love, last year's champion. I guess I could overlook him, but I feel like on a season-long body of work, Love doesn't run in the very front enough to beat a Justin Allgaier. Okay, with nothing that's hit the track, Allgaier champion. First time winner. I think this is easier than all of the ones to pick. Brent Cruz. Brent Cruz, number 19, Joe Gibbs Racing. Yeah, he'll miss a couple races start the year till he turns 18 for the big tracks. But Brent Cruz almost won that truck race a couple of times late in the season. Brent Cruz, put him down. Although I think Raja's a good guess, and maybe some others. Brent Cruz, surprise playoff team. That's extremely tough. Somebody, it's going to be a surprise not to make the playoffs. One of these big teams, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but a Brandon Jones, or maybe Austin Hill has a bad year, or Carson Quapple, or someone is going to fall, is not going to make the cut. Last year, it came down to the Burton cousins, Jeb and Harrison, making the playoffs. And initially, I was going to pick Jeb to be the surprise Jordan Anderson Racing playoff team member. But Harrison Burton, well, let's put it this, Sam Hunt Racing has never made the playoffs or won a race. I think Harrison Burton in the number 24 Toyota will do that for them and will be the 12th playoff driver. So that's my surprise there for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Now to Cup. We're all going to pick here. All right. So Dan, you can't dodge this one. Okay. I'll go to Devin first.
Is that a pun?
I don't know. I missed it if it was.
You can't dodge this one. There ain't a dodge.
You can't. You're going to have to ram it head on, son.
There ain't no ram in it either.
So to Devin.
I need to get some horsepower in here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God. Oh, we're dead. We're so cooked as we pass an hour in this show. We are so cooked. Okay. We're as cooked as Johnny B is a Dahlonega.
Yeah,
Listen,
you're basted
Devin,
right now, aren't you?
buddy, I'm running on 4 a.m. fuel. That's what I'm running on. Dev, surprise playoff team, first time winner. Yeah, that's a smaller list in Cup. Most of these guys have won. First time winner and a champion.
First time winner, I think we see. I think you'll see. It's between two drivers, but I'm gonna go with Connor Zilich this year.
Oh, ahead of Hocevar and Gibbs, Connor.
Yeah.
Okay. So first time winner, Connor Zilich. I'm going to try to remember these and type all these down and have some fun with that. All right.
And my
Keep
champion.
Going. Well, let's go with surprise playoff team. 16 playoff spots. Somehow there are more Cup drivers that make the playoffs than Trucks or O'Reilly. But okay, 16 playoff drivers. Go. Which one will be a surprise since we don't have winning you're in?
You know what? How about Ryan Preece as a surprise winner? But I mean, he did just win the Clash, but a surprise driver in the playoffs this year.
I think that's a great pick. Somebody who's fringe, but showed they were good enough to do it. Again, a body of 26 races. 26 races. No winning you're in. Respond right here. You've already responded, and NASCAR changed it. All right, so Dev's got that for the surprise playoff driver. Now you're champion.
My champion, I got to go with Chase Elliott, and I actually talked to him yesterday. Asked him about if the points, how the format's set up now, is going to benefit him, and he was like, well, it's a new year. You can have different problems pop up, but to counteract that, I think with how solid he's finished in these races, he reminds me of what, and I've said it on here before, but Kevin Harvick was later in his career. Very solid finishes, just not a lot of wins. I think that benefits Chase Elliott immensely this year, to the point I think he can go out and win the championship this season.
Okay. Chase Elliott, the champion there, and he has the body of work to do that. One thing I love that Chase said, tell me what you guys think, particularly Dan, about this, is the kind of the salve to make him feel better or make people feel better about Chase's not winning so much is such a great average finish and how that positioned him at points. And Chase said, I narrowly missed, I'm paraphrasing what he said to Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi when they interviewed drivers for 7 straight hours on the teardown on Wednesday, which is crazy to me. But anyway, Chase Elliott said, I narrowly missed a couple of crashes early in the season where it wasn't how great I was, it's just I barely missed them by inches. If I had gotten in those wrecks, no one would have been saying how great my average finish was. So my average finish was inches away from being cooked. 2 or 3 different crashes. So he goes, I don't rest on that. He goes, I need to run better. We need to run up front. And I thought that was a really great way to put that. You know, since he was 13 years old, in my experience with Chase, you got way more experience with him, Dan. That's how he's always done stuff. Whenever we try to say, Chase, you did so well, he's like, yeah, but and he threw some cold water on that. Dan, do you want to go before I do mine? Predictions here: champion, surprise, or rather, a surprise playoff driver, or chase driver, and first time winner.
First time winner, I think, will be Ty Gibbs.
Okay, it's about time.
And champion, I would say Chase. I mean, it's just you can't bet against it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could.
You might
but
lose.
yeah, 2020 champion in the old playoff elimination format. What about a surprise playoff team? I know that's the hardest one to pick because there's so many teams that make it and a bunch that don't, and they're all right on top of each other. Remember the mid-pack last year, how close the points were from like 15th to 25th.
Can I pick somebody that made the cut this year that will be a surprise?
Sure.
I'm gonna
whatever you think's a surprise.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, boy, Devin is gonna flinch on this one. Gisbergen.
SVG. No, that's a great pick. That's a great pick. SVG, he would have just like barely made the top 16 with those 4 wins entering the playoffs last year. Extra points for winning, but now he has Zilich to go toe-to-toe with. He's getting better on ovals, but still is years behind the others in racing ovals. Great. That's a really good one.
Man, maybe he's played on the simulators a lot more over the off season.
Devin says it's just racing legend cars. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say.
Racing legends cars.
Oh man. Okay.
Maybe he's racing legends on the simulator.
No. No, but that was funny. Okay, for me, Cup Series. Let's go with first-time winner. I think it could be any of those 3 that really stand out. But I mean, why not? Why not Carson Hocevar, man? if we've already picked Ty Gibbs, we've already picked Connor Zilich, I'm going to say Hocevar, even though it really should be money budget statistics should say it's one of the other 2, but especially Ty Gibbs. I'm gonna go Carson Hocevar. They just signed him up long-term deal at Spire. Spire needs to win. Go for it. And they of course won a long time ago at Daytona with Justin Haley in a weird rain-out situation. Look it up. Respond right here. Surprise playoff driver. Now, this is tough because I feel like there aren't going to be any surprises. So maybe I should tweak this to say the one that makes it by the hair of their chinny chin chin. But somebody maybe that shouldn't make it but could. Large body of work. And this is the one I'm going to struggle with because Priest and SVG are really good ones. I don't think Zilich, even if he wins a race, is going to do it. I think he's going to be riding the back of the teens. So, surprise playoff driver. Gosh. I would say Alex Bowman, but gosh, man, he's right up there. So who is emerging? I'm going to go with Priest as well. We're allowed to pick the same stuff, so I'm going to go with Priest. Champion, Christopher Bell, because his playoffs last year, he didn't make the championship 4, but had the best last 10 races of everybody, and I just feel like he's the next one that needs to emerge. I feel like Byron's already emerged and just hasn't won a championship. It's going to be Bell, but it could be anyone. I also feel like Blaney and Byron, this is going to be right in their wheelhouse, and Chase. Let me not forget him. So, man, we got through that.
Yeah,
let's
narrow it down to about 8 people.
Well,
I mean, really,
you.
when you look at it, what's changed for the most part since last year? That's the thing about it anymore is used to be you had some wild cards that came in and I'm sure that it will come down to I'm sure it'll be some good races in your chase here, but it really comes down to the same thing to pick from. I just don't see a lot. I don't see a lot changing this year.
Okay, that's fair. Well, with all this being said, the only thing you could get is a surprise playoff driver. A year ago would be somebody that wins and they're in.
If
NASCAR
would change your racetracks more so for those last races, if NASCAR would have a Gen 8 car before these last races, if if maybe you had a engine change rule, whatever, or package change, something that I saw on the horizon, I'd feel differently about it, but I don't.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, I'm sitting here while you're saying that and trying to think about what Devin you said all your truck picks were. I was trying to type these down so we could lock those in because it's tough, man. It's tough. I think we both agree about first time winner trucks, though. Caden Honeycutt. That's going to happen. Okay, so anybody want to venture for Daytona 500 picks? Anybody want to throw one out there before we go? And I know it's worthless, man, because gosh, a lot of people could do it. I want to point out while you're thinking of it, because I did. So I've started with 107.5 The Point in Columbia, South Carolina, doing something right before we recorded these Thursdays here at 1:30 in the afternoon. Tyler Head, John Tyler Head, not Tyler Head from Echo Park Speedway, but John Tyler Head's a co-host of a show, and he's actually been on 5 to Go before. He invited me on to start being a race analyst every Thursday afternoon, and I was ready for this. Okay, I was ready for this. Who's your pick to win the 500? All right, I was like, juiced up, but again, it could be anybody, right? So, but I thought about last 2 years. It's been William Byron. That's not a fluke. He kind of fluke won it this past year by being 8th on the last lap or whatever. But he's a front runner. The year before it was Byron. The 3 years before that it was Rando though. Ricky Stenhouse, who's really good at the super speedways, but still small team. Austin Cindric in 2022. The year before that, Michael McDowell the year before that. And then the 2 years before that, it was Hamlin. All right. So if we're following the 2-3-2 cycle, is it time to get to the randos again? And who are the randos? I don't know if there are any left in the Cup Series anymore. So just something, a filter to throw out there in the middle of that. Dan, do you want to try to pick the 500?
Gisbergen.
SVG. Okay. God dang. Man, that would be anarchy. Okay.
The Australian, New Zealand driver.
Oh, my gosh.
He's gonna beat you.
Yeah, Devin,
he's gonna beat you with a Billabong.
I wouldn't want to cross him.
There's never mind. Never mind. Scratch it.
What? Oh, okay.
No. There's people in the comments on one of the videos. SVG. I accidentally said, "Oh, how would it mean to win the Daytona 500?" Given there's not many people from Australia that are coming over here.
Oh. Y'all, hashtag hire Devin. He needs a job. We need to stop sending, he's spending too much time talking to drivers, okay? It's starting to run together. I'm just joking. Dev, you want to pick the 500? A 500 winner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again.
No, do you want to pick a 500 winner? That was funny.
Kyle Busch. That'd be really cool.
Man.
Yep.
Oh, man. Kyle Busch, 21st attempt. Mike Joy will have to say 21 years of trying. I was going to go, look, and there's others, okay, that you could say break a streak. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson have never won it, and they've had a bunch of attempts here. Can you believe, by the way, this is Chase's 11th Daytona 500? That's crazy, man. 11th. 2016 was the first. 11th. And he won the pole in his first attempt, by the way. Chase Elliott, I could see a lot of people. I'm going Kyle Busch as well. Break the streak. He almost won it in 23. He finished runner-up there in 2024 in the summer race, nearly won his way into the playoffs. He does not have a great record at Daytona, only 13 top 10s and 41 starts, but he does have a win there way back, and I think it was 2009 in the summer race. Never won the 500. Why not Kyle the pole sitter? The pole sitter has never won the Daytona 500 or has not won the Daytona 500 in 25 years. Dale Jarrett and Jeff Gordon did it the year before that, 1999. So there you go. Here you go. All right, so Devin, you're down in Daytona, man. Final thoughts for you.
Yeah, my final thought is, and this is more on the TV side of things, that the NFL is getting to renegotiate their TV rights early. So their TV rights went through 2031, the contract that they signed with a lot of the TV partners earlier in this decade. They had an opt-out clause in that contract stating that I think it is the 2028 NFL season, so 2 years from now, they can have a new contract in place by then if they so deem to be. The NFL's gotten a lot more popular over the past couple of years, and they're already starting to reevaluate their media rights deal. We've seen reports come out in the past couple of weeks that there is broadcast partners and leagues going in to kind of halt on negotiating current sports contracts that they have with broadcast partners have with the leagues. We've seen the NHL actually are going up and getting ahead and renegotiating their rights early so they can at least secure themselves to be in place for the next couple of years. But the reports that have come out lately is that depending on what the NFL will charge, to see maybe if CBS, Fox, or NBC is going to want to keep them is going to be dependent on how much they charge. And with that, we might have to see other some of the TV partners cut ties with some of their sports rights that they have. So maybe Fox cuts the MLB out, or maybe they would cut NASCAR out. I think this is something to watch out for, to see what the NFL charges with the ones that partner with the NASCAR partners. I think that's something to watch out for. Won't really formulate for about another 2 or so years, but that's something to look out for, the renegotiation of these NFL TV rights and how it could affect NASCAR.
And what if a Fox and NBC Versant, maybe not so much Prime or TNT, but what if Fox or the NBC Versant came to NASCAR to renegotiate the other way if the ratings aren't great? Boy, that would be – this is the biggest sponsor in the sport. I would think that there would be a legal case on that one to renegotiate that. We've seen on the local TV rights side things go really poorly for the Sinclair-owned Main Street Sports Company that has the FanDuel networks that have the Braves. The Braves are going to have their own network of some kind this year instead of being on FanDuel Sports. The Hawks stuff could change midseason. I mean, it's a really weird environment because you would think it would be so profitable for as many people as watch sports, but also there's the exodus from cable. So interesting. Yeah, great point, Devin. You really, out of the three of us, have your finger the most on the pulse of the TV stuff. Dan, as you're flanked by, is that red Mustang behind you?
Thunderbird.
Thunderbird, excuse me. What's your final thoughts today, bud?
My final thought is can't wait to get this first one under the belt, so to speak, and then try to get a feel for the strengths of the teams as we go into this, because I think there's a lot, not only for the drivers, but a lot for the teams riding on this as well. And as I've always said, set some momentum for at least the first part of the year anyway. And I think this is for the ones that do well, then morale will be high. For the ones that don't, they usually buckle down and nose to the grindstone and really do get better as it starts out. But then you have the ones like Tony Stewart, who didn't sometimes lead off with as much strength, but their second half of the season excelled. So to me, let's get this one under the belt and get settled in, and I think you'll have a better idea of maybe what the season's going to bring. And that's kind of the final thought, other than fact of safe race.
Oh, well, yeah, we definitely want safe races too. Thank you for saying that, Dan. Goodness, there are a lot of ways to go with the final thought here. I'll just say we thank you all for up and with us for another season. We don't really divide it into seasons, but another racing season of the 5 to Go podcast. We started in 2017. I think it's so cool, Dev, that you're down at Daytona. I urge you all, whether it's our YouTube channel with the short videos, or it's our 5 to Go podcast Facebook page, or Devin Kupka on either X or Instagram, to go seek out that content. He's talking to so many drivers, getting vantage points that you're just not going to get, because there's only, so many places you can go with that. You may not have the TV package that gets whichever race. Devin's taking you right up to it there, so be sure and plug in with the 5 to Go podcast on those. And we thank very much Performance Racing Network, who keeps us on GoPRN.com. And, of course, we want you all to find us on Apple and Spotify, and now YouTube as well. We're sorry, folks, about the connection on Dan's side there, but he was able to jump in and really punch hard to the finish. We appreciate that, buddy. But Devin, safe travels for you. Or are you driving back? What? I mean, I guess it could depend on weather, but are you driving back Monday?
Yeah, I'll be driving back Monday. Unsure if the Daytona 500 gets postponed to Monday, depending on the time of day that the race is going to be held at.
Prime time.
We'll see if I stay for the 500 or not, if it is indeed run on Monday.
Man, well, that's big. Yeah, when they last did Mondays, they were prime time races. All right, that was tough. That was tough, and it makes it really tough on the industry because Echo Park is the next week. You got to come back to Charlotte, back down to Atlanta. And it wasn't all that long ago that the second races were across the country and not at Echo Park Speedway too. Back 10 plus years ago. So yeah. All right. Well, folks, this is going to put it into the garage. I know it was $120. We had some short episodes leading up to this, but we had a lot to go through there, including our preseason predictions there. Devin and Dan pick Chase Elliott for champion. I pick Christopher Bell. Dan picks Shane Van Gisbergen to win the Daytona 500. I and Devin both pick Kyle Busch. We'll see what happens here and sum it all up here on the 5 to Go podcast. Be sure to share, like, subscribe, carrier pigeon, throw it in your neighbor's driveway, all the different ways you can deliver the show, and have a safe weekend. Happy Valentine's Day, and we will see you next week here on the 5 to Go podcast. Let's go racing!